Hello to all Michael's family and friends, wherever you are. It's with a great deal of sadness that I can't attend Michael's funeral. Now, I'm sure that his family and friends in and around Brightlingsea would be interested to know about Michael's early life up in Kersley. And I'm also sure that his family and friends in and around Kersley and the wider area would also be interested in what Michael did when he made the move to Brightlingsea. So that's what this eulogy is about. Michael Hindley was born on the 10th of June 1946 in Townley's Hospital in Farnworth, which is now in Greater Manchester and is called the Royal Bolton Hospital. He grew up in a small 2-up and 2-down terrace in William Street in Farnworth. He attended Kersley West Primary School, which is just a 10-minute walk from William Street. From primary school, he went to George Tomlinson Secondary Modern School, which would be a 10-minute bus ride from his home. I also went to George Tomlinson School, but I would be in the first year stream and Michael would be in the 4th year, and I didn't know him then. Kersley West is just in the next street to the New Jerusalem Church, which would become a huge part of Michael's life. In 1967, a friend of mine asked me to go with him to a youth club at the Kersley New Jerusalem Church, and this is where I first met Michael. My earliest image of Michael comes to mind where he wore a 3/4 length sheepskin coat and a Bolton College scarf. This would be his uniform through the whole of the winter. Some of Michael's classmates also attended the youth club. Eric Cummins, Malcolm Royal, Alan and Joan, Sid and June, Carol and David, Carol and Ken. If I've missed anybody out, I'm sorry. And we all became very good friends. The youth leader was Eric Yates. He was a local Liberal councillor, and when the Liberals had a fundraising event, we would go and support them, and in turn, when we had some fundraising for the church, they would come and support us. The events usually would be cheese and wine evenings with a raffle, tombola and a bottle stall. You see, in Kersley we really did know how to live it up in those days. The youth club met for a couple of hours on Sunday evening after attending church services, which was a kind of condition of the club. There would be various games like ping pong. I remember Jimmy Hayes brought some dumbbells and a bench press, and no, I never saw Michael use those. The club had a Decca record player, and members brought records, singles and LPs. One LP I took was John Barry's Movie Hits. Michael would ask to borrow this on a few occasions, and I am convinced this led him on his path to his love of classical music, to which there must be 300 CDs of classical music in his collection. More of that later. Michael passed his driving test, and for his 18th birthday his parents bought him a brand new Ford Anglia. It wasn't long before he got well involved with the Kersley Church, and in 1967 he became church secretary. This was quite a crucial time for the church, as a motorway development would be coming through Farnworth and Kersley, and one building had to be demolished. This would be the Sunday School / Youth Club. As with Michael, anything he gets involved with, he would put in 110%, and he would liaise in meetings with Lancashire County Council, mainly for compensation replacement for the Sunday School. The road development meant that there would be a roundabout right at the side of the church, and nearly all of the graveyard would have to be taken. So this meant Michael would have to meet with the Department of the Environment. The new Sunday School turned out to be a much better building than the one demolished, so much so that we had a complete set of stage lighting and a fully equipped catering kitchen. Michael really did the church proud there. With all this new facilities, the stage lighting, we decided to put on a review, which was mainly scripted by Eric Cummings, but we all made a contribution. The review was made up of songs and sketches. For Michael's 21st birthday, he invited us all to the Bowling Green Inn at Charnock Richard, which is near Preston. It was a dinner dance, and there was a 5-piece orchestra in the Minstrels Gallery, all very nice. And he laid on a coach, and we all went on our merry way, and I can tell you it was even merrier on the way back. I think for his birthday present we all chipped in and bought him some Stuart Crystal. Michael had good taste and started to collect community plate cutlery and Stuart Crystal glassware, which he kept in his teak G-plan display cabinets. The youth club once attended the Kersley Civic Ball, a function to welcome the new mayor. The ball was held in our old school, George Tomlinson, and in the raffle I won a thick Egon Ronay guide. In those days I hadn't a clue what it was, but Michael knew, and he said, "If you don't want that, I'll buy it off you." I said, "It's a deal." I can honestly say I never saw Michael have a crossword with anybody, but one of his trademark mannerisms of displeasure was that if he didn't see eye to eye with anyone about a subject, he would stare at them over the top of his glasses, and then they could consider themselves to have been withered. I once remarked to Michael, maybe having had too much to drink, that he had a resemblance to Bamber Gascoigne off University Challenge. That was the first and last time I got withered. As an apprentice joiner, one time I had to go to an education office, and by coincidence it was in the town called Hindley, near Wigan. And when I entered the building, who should be working there but Michael? So there was Michael Hindley in Hindley. The youth club name by now had all but faded away and would be replaced by the Inn Group, and I should say the Inn was spelt with 2 N's. And we had a motto which was created by Michael. It was, in Latin, in vino veritas, when translated means in wine there is truth. The Inn Group would go away on various holidays. The Bay Hotel at Newquay in 1967. On the drive down we took the wrong turning We finished up on the M4 going into Wales, but we needed to be on the M5 to Devon. Now this was in the days before central barriers were installed on motorways, and I kid you not, we did a U-turn on the M4 to go back and pick up the M5. But the Bay Hotel was 5-star and we all had an excellent holiday. Other holidays were the Norfolk Broads and Abersoch in Wales, and there was a youth hostel connected with the church at Kildwick in Yorkshire. We would go there for religious schools and Easter, but there would also be times when we could use it for holidays. By now Michael had changed his car to a red Austin 1300 GT, and yes, we were all surprised with that one. And whilst there, he let me drive it from Kildwick to Skipton. That was awesome. In 1973, Michael was elected to the Conference Council, which is a governing body of the National Church. By 1974, he was living in 76 Carlton Street, Farnworth, with Isabel and their youngest son Simon. Michael had done an Open University degree, and this gave him the opportunity to get the job in Chelmsford, Essex, where he was one of 3 other colleagues in charge of the education budget for buildings in Essex. The move to Brightlingsea was made, and their youngest son Dan was born soon after. Michael would travel back to Kersley for meetings or special social occasions. When I first visited him, he was living in Campanelle Close in Brightlingsea, and that was when it was approaching Christmas. He invited me down to stay, so I travelled down. This would be mid-1990s, before sat-navs or GPS, and of course it had to be foggy, didn't it? So I was just a few miles from Brightlingsea, but I had got lost. This was also before mobile phones, so I found a phone box and tried to describe where I was. It turned out, though I didn't know at the time, I was in Dedham. It was nice to reacquaint myself with Simon again, who I hadn't seen since he was a toddler, and of course it was great to meet Dan for the first time. After that, I would go each Christmas and usually Easter. Earlier I said he was a collector of Stuart Crystal. On Christmas Day we would sit down at the table and there would be a glass for hock, a glass for claret and a water goblet, and of course the silver plate cutlery, and then eating Christmas dinner around all that made it really memorable. I have a keen interest in art and would also travel down to Brightlingsea, and we would go into London on the train to take in some amazing exhibitions at the V&A, the Royal Academy and Tate Britain. When Michael travelled back to Kersley, he would stay with one of 2 friends. So we would meet up in Manchester, usually have lunch in the City Art Gallery. We were there in May 2003, and we were just wandering round after lunch in the glass atrium, and we heard this commotion as a large group of people descended the stairs with a couple of photographers. Although I'm not a huge fan of football, I could see that the Champions League trophy was in somebody's hand, and the person holding it was Pat Crerand, former Manchester United player from the late 50s and 60s. The trophy was being exhibited at the City Art Gallery prior to the Champions League final between Juventus and Milan to be played at Old Trafford. So Pat Crerand looked at us 2 and said, "Oh, we'll get these 2 on." So there we were, posing with the Champions League trophy. The hilarious thing about all this is that neither Michael or myself are the least bit interested in football. But we had our picture taken, and a few weeks later the gallery rang to say that the prints are ready. Michael's love of classical music meant that we would have to make a beeline for the Bridgewater Hall in Manchester, which is the home of the Hindley Orchestra. It didn't matter what the programme was, we would go and see something. He had a particular liking for devotional music. One particular piece would be at the top of his list, even maybe number one would be the Bruck Violin Concerto. Another one near the top would be Vaughan Williams' Fantasia on a theme by Thomas Tallis, which you may hear today. So the year is now 2004, and as his family and friends in Brightlingsea well know, this is the year he was made deputy, or to give him his correct title, Deputy of the Cinque Port Liberty of Brightlingsea. A new deputy is sworn in on choosing day, and this, if I recall, is done in early December. For Michael's friends back in the north of England, you can have a look at the website. This will give you an insight into the role of the deputy and what he does. In 2007, Michael's friend Peter Collier-Smith had just finished restoring a small cabin cruiser called John Boy. He took us out into the estuary along with his wife Jackie and my girlfriend then Barbara. We of course took some drinks and some lunch. The sea was like a mirror, and when there was something special on up north, he would travel there, like the time we went to see Tall Ships in Liverpool and take in the Beatles' first menu, The Cavern. That was in 2008. In 2011 I went on a holiday to Prague. Michael had already been there a few years before, so in 2013 we arranged a holiday to go back, and two of my friends came with us, Anne and Sue. At the time there was an amazing exhibition on by Alphonse Mucha. Here you see Michael to give some idea of the scale of these paintings. I was now starting to spend more and more time abroad. From about 2017, Michael's health started to deteriorate as he suffered a few mini strokes. Thank you to those who've helped with images and dates putting this eulogy together. So, how do you finish a eulogy to Michael? Well, I'm going to do it like this, with his favourite tipple, and say, thank you Michael, God bless, here's to you.